The birthday invitation. The market was loud and full of voices, colors, and smells. Traders shouted about their goods. Children ran between stalls and strange alien music played from somewhere in the distance. In the middle of all this noise, a human named Daniel walked slowly, looking for food and supplies. He was tired from his long travels. His face was calm, but inside he carried heavy thoughts about his lonely life on this faraway planet. As he passed a stall selling fruit, he felt a small hand tug gently at his sleeve. Surprised, he looked down. Standing before him was a little alien girl, no more than 6 years old. Her skin had a soft silver-blue glow and her big eyes shined like 2 drops of water. She was thin, dressed in simple clothes that looked old and patched. She looked up at him with a nervous but determined expression. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Can you be my dad, at least for one night?" Daniel froze. For a moment, he thought he had misheard, but the girl kept looking at him with those wide, innocent eyes full of both hope and fear. What did you say?" he asked softly, leaning down to hear her better. The girl took a deep breath, then spoke again, her words trembling. "My mom is so lonely. Tomorrow is her birthday. She smiles for me, but I know she cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. Please, can you come? Just for one night, just be my dad at her birthday party?" Her little hands gripped his sleeve tightly as if she was afraid he would run away. Daniel's heart beat faster. He was not expecting this. Why would an alien child he had never seen before ask such a strange thing from him? He wanted to step back, but something in her voice stopped him. He asked carefully, "Where is your real father?" The little girl looked down at the ground, her lips trembling. "He left us. He said we were useless. He never came back." Her small shoulders shook, but she did not cry. She had already cried too many times. Daniel felt a sharp pain inside. He knew the feeling of being abandoned. He had grown up without parents too, left to struggle alone in his early years. Now this little alien girl was asking him to fill the same empty space that had once broken him. Still, he did not answer right away. Around them, the market noises continued, but Daniel only heard the silence between him and the girl. He could not decide if this was real or just some child's fantasy. The girl noticed his hesitation. She pulled a small folded paper from her pocket and showed it to him. On it was a drawing made with crayons. It showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall man, a woman with long hair, and a little girl in between. The drawing was simple, childish, but full of hope. "This is us," she said, her small voice steady now. "Me, my mom, and you. If you come, she will not feel sad on her birthday. Please, sir, just one night." Daniel stared at the paper, unable to speak. The child's dream was so simple, yet so powerful. Before he could respond, the girl grabbed his hand with surprising strength. "You don't even need to bring a gift," she added quickly. "Just come, sit at the table, and smile. That is enough for her. That will make her happy." Her words cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment, Daniel stood still. His mind screamed that this was not his problem, that he had his own struggles to face. Yet his heart told him something different. He saw himself in this little girl. The same loneliness, the same desperate wish for someone to stand beside you even for a short time. Finally, he knelt down so that his eyes were level with hers. "What is your name?" he asked. She looked surprised, then smiled shyly. "Lyra." "All right, Lyra," Daniel said slowly. I don't know what I can do, but I'll come. I'll be there." Her eyes lit up instantly, brighter than the stars above the market. She jumped forward and hugged him tightly, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck. "Thank you." "Thank you. Mom will be so happy. You'll see. Tomorrow will be the best birthday ever." Daniel felt something warm rise in his chest, something he had not felt in years. As the little alien girl ran off into the crowd, clutching her drawing, he realized his quiet, lonely journey had just taken a turn he never expected. But deep inside, a question burned. What kind of woman lived behind that child's sadness? And why did fate choose him, of all people, to answer this birthday invitation? The market noises returned around him, but Daniel no longer noticed them. He held the crayon drawing in his hand, the simple dream of a child who only wanted her mother to smile again. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel whispered to himself, "Maybe tomorrow I will not be alone either." The lonely mother. The next evening came slowly for Daniel. He had not stopped thinking about the little alien girl since their meeting in the market. Her words kept echoing in his head. My mom is so lonely. Please be my dad at her birthday party. He almost convinced himself not to go. He told himself it was foolish, he didn't know them and they didn't know him. But when he opened his bag, the small crayon drawing was still there, folded neatly. The simple picture of a family, mother, daughter, and him, stared back at him like a silent promise. Daniel sighed, tucked it into his pocket, and set out through the narrow streets. The girl, Lyra, was waiting for him at the edge of a quiet neighborhood. The houses here were old, patched together with scrap metal and stone. Most of the lights were dim and the streets were empty. When Lyra saw him, she ran forward, her face bright. You came, she cried, grabbing his hand and pulling him along. Daniel nodded awkwardly. I said I would. The little girl led him to a small, crumbling house. Its walls were cracked and the roof sagged in places. A faint glow came from inside, flickering like a candle. Lyra pushed open the door and called out, Mama! Look, he's here! Inside, Daniel saw her. The alien mother stood near a simple table holding a bowl of food in her hands. She was tall, her figure graceful even under a worn dress. Her skin was the same silver blue as her daughter's, but her face carried deep lines of worry and exhaustion. Her long hair, once shining, was tied back in a loose braid. She turned slowly, her eyes widening when she saw Daniel at the door. Lyra, she said softly, her voice heavy with surprise. Who is this? Before Daniel could answer, Lyra rushed forward. Mama, this is him. The one I told you about. He said yes, he will be my dad for tonight. For your birthday. The mother's face froze. For a moment, Daniel thought she would laugh, but instead her lips trembled and her eyes filled with pain. Lyra, she whispered sharply. What have you done? Daniel raised his hands quickly. Wait, I didn't mean to intrude. Your daughter asked me to come. I thought... He stopped, unsure what to say. The mother put the bowl down slowly, her hands shaking. I'm sorry, she said, her voice low but firm. She shouldn't have bothered you. Please go. This isn't... No! Lyra cried, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. Please, Mama. Don't send him away! Just for tonight. You're always so sad. You never smile, please. He came for you. The room fell silent. The little girl clung to her mother's dress, tears finally spilling from her eyes. Daniel stood frozen, caught between wanting to leave and wanting to stay. The mother knelt down and held her daughter close. She stroked Lyra's hair gently, her own tears falling. For a long time, she didn't look at Daniel. Finally, she whispered, You don't understand. People already talk. They call me weak. They call her fatherless. If they see you here... Her words broke off. She could not finish. Daniel took a deep breath. I don't care what they say. I only came because she begged me. I don't want to hurt you. If my being here makes things worse, I'll leave. For the first time, the mother lifted her eyes and looked at him. Her gaze was sharp, full of both suspicion and exhaustion. But beneath it, there was also something else, a quiet longing hidden deep. Lyra tugged at her sleeve again. Please, Mama, just for tonight. He doesn't have to stay long. Just sit at the table with us, please. The mother closed her eyes for a moment. Then she gave a small, tired nod. All right, but only tonight. Lyra clapped her hands in joy, then ran to set the table. The room was small and poor. There were only 3 bowls, and the food was simple: bread, soup, and a few pieces of fruit. But the little girl hummed happily as she arranged everything, as if it were a feast. Daniel sat quietly at the table, unsure what to say. The mother sat across from him, her posture straight, her face unreadable. Finally, Daniel tried to speak. My name is Daniel. I didn't mean to cause trouble. The mother hesitated before answering. I am Saren. Her voice was low and formal. Lyra placed the bowls in front of them with a big smile. See, Mama? Now it feels like a real birthday. Saren's lips trembled again, but she forced a small smile for her daughter's sake. She lit a single candle on the table and whispered, Happy birthday to me, almost too softly to hear. Daniel watched her closely. He saw the way her hands shook, the way her eyes held back years of sorrow. She was beautiful but broken, and though he had just met her, something inside him ached for her pain. As they ate, the silence grew heavy. Lyra kept talking, laughing, trying to fill the air with joy. But every time she called him Dad, Saren flinched slightly as if the word was a blade cutting into an old wound. Daniel said little, but inside he felt a strange pull. This woman was more than just lonely. She was trapped between strength and despair, fighting to raise her child in a world that had already judged her. When the meal was finished, Lyra leaned against Daniel's arm and whispered, "Thank you. You made Mama smile tonight." And for the first time, Daniel realized it was true. Saren's smile was faint, fragile, but it was there. Yet behind that smile, he could see a storm waiting to break. The birthday dinner. The table was set, though it was small and humble. A single candle burned weakly in the center, its flame flickering against the cracked walls of the house. The room smelled faintly of bread and soup, the only meal Saren had been able to prepare. Lyra sat between her mother and Daniel, her smile shining brighter than the candle itself. For Daniel, the moment felt strange. He had fought in battles, traveled across dangerous lands, and faced threats that could kill him in seconds, but never had he felt as nervous as he did now. Sitting at a simple table with a lonely mother and her daughter, Saren, the mother, sat silently. She ate slowly, her eyes lowered, as though she wanted to be anywhere else but here. Every time Lyra called Daniel Dad, Saren's shoulders stiffened. But the little girl didn't stop. She poured soup into Daniel's bowl with care, pushed bread toward him, and whispered happily, "This feels like a real family now." Daniel forced a smile, though inside he felt uneasy. He didn't want to overstep, yet the child's innocent joy pulled at his heart. He noticed how Lyra's laughter seemed to heal the silence that clung to the room like a shadow. To break the tension, Daniel said softly, "This is good soup." Saren's head lifted slightly. "It's nothing special," she replied in a quiet voice. "Just what we had." "It's enough," Daniel said firmly, looking at her with steady eyes. "It's warm and it brings us together. That's what makes it special." For the first time, Saren met his gaze. Her eyes, silver blue like her daughter's, carried years of tiredness but also a hidden spark of gratitude. She looked away quickly, but Daniel had already seen it. Lyra clapped her hands. "See, Mama? He likes it. I told you it's the best birthday meal." The girl jumped down from her seat, ran to a small shelf, and returned with a tiny cake, if it could even be called that. It was small, flat, and unevenly baked, but Lyra carried it with both hands as if it were a treasure. She placed it carefully on the table and stuck the candle from before in the middle. "Happy birthday, Mama," she sang loudly, her voice full of love. "Make a wish." Saren's lips parted, but no words came. She stared at the little cake as though it were both a gift and a knife. Slowly, she blew out the candle. The room fell into soft darkness for a moment before the candle was lit again. Daniel noticed her eyes glistening. He realized that it wasn't the cake that broke her. It was the fact that her daughter, still so young, had gone to such effort to make her feel loved. It was a child trying to fill the space that should have been filled by a partner, by a family, but wasn't. Trying to ease the moment, Daniel asked, "So, Lyra, what did your mom wish for?" Lyra giggled. "She won't tell us. But I think I know. She wished for us to be happy." Saren's face turned away, hiding her tears. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had come here because of a child's request, but now he was beginning to see the truth. This was not just about a birthday dinner. This was about a woman who carried too much pain in silence. As the meal continued, Lyra started talking about small things, how she wanted to learn to fly ships one day, how she thought stars were like lanterns hung by giants, how she dreamed of having a garden full of flowers. Her words filled the air with light, but Daniel noticed something. Every time Lyra said "we," she always included him. He wondered if Saren noticed too. Finally, when the meal was nearly over, Daniel leaned back and asked softly, "Why do you always eat alone? Don't you have friends who come to visit?" Saren's hand froze over her bowl. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, with a bitter smile, she said, "People don't visit women like me. They think I'm weak. They think I'm cursed for being left behind. In their eyes, I am broken." Her words cut the air like a blade. Daniel wanted to respond, but he stayed silent, sensing her struggle. Lyra's little hand touched her mother's arm. "But Mama, you're not broken. You're the strongest person I know." Saren forced a smile for her daughter, but Daniel saw the truth behind it. She was fighting every day, carrying burdens too heavy for one person. The silence stretched again until Daniel finally spoke, his voice steady but low. "Strength isn't about never falling. It's about standing again when you do. From what I see, you're stronger than most. Saren's eyes flickered toward him, a mixture of surprise and doubt. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she turned her gaze back to her daughter. The night went on quietly, but Daniel felt something shifting. It was small, almost invisible, but real. A tiny bridge was being built across the silence between him and Saren, and Lyra was the one who had started it. When the dinner ended, Lyra leaned against Daniel's side, yawning. "This was the best birthday, Mama," she whispered sleepily. "Because he came." Saren tucked her daughter into bed, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled the blanket over her. Daniel stood by the door, unsure whether to stay or go. When Saren returned, she looked at him for a long time. Her expression was unreadable, part gratitude, part fear. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you, for tonight." "For making her happy," Daniel nodded. "She made me happy too." For a moment, their eyes held each other's. Then Saren turned away, blowing out the candle. But in the darkness, Daniel felt something he had not felt in years, the faint warmth of belonging. The past revealed the next morning. The sun rose weakly over the old streets, painting the cracked walls of Saren's neighborhood in pale gold. Daniel had not planned to stay the night, but something about the little home made him pause. He had sat quietly on a chair near the door while Saren put Lyra to bed, and by the time silence filled the house, he had drifted into sleep. When he opened his eyes, he found Saren standing near the window. Her figure was outlined by the soft light, and her expression was unreadable. She didn't notice he was awake. She was staring out at the empty street with a faraway look, as if she were lost in memories too heavy to share. Daniel rose slowly. "Good morning," he said softly. Saren turned sharply, surprise flickering in her eyes. For a second, her face softened, but then she quickly hid it again behind a wall of formality. "You shouldn't still be here," she said quietly. "People will talk if they see you." Daniel hesitated. "I'll leave soon. But before I do, I want to understand." Her brow furrowed. "Understand what?" Daniel took a step closer, his voice steady but gentle. "Lyra asked a stranger to be her father. That doesn't happen unless something is very wrong. You don't have to tell me everything. But I need to know what you've been carrying." For a moment, Saren said nothing. The silence stretched until Daniel thought she might refuse. But then she let out a long, broken sigh and sank into a chair, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them in her lap. "You want to know?" she whispered. "Then I'll tell you." Daniel sat across from her, his eyes never leaving hers. Saren's gaze drifted to the cracked wall as she spoke. "Years ago, when I was young, I thought my life was full of promise. I was married to a man of my people. He was strong, admired, respected. I believed he loved me. When Lyra was born, I thought we would finally be complete." Her voice caught. "But he changed. Slowly at first. Then all at once." Daniel leaned forward. "Changed how?" Saren's lips pressed tightly together. He started to see Lyra as a burden. He wanted a son, not a daughter. He said girls were weak. He said I had failed him. At first I tried to please him, to make him stay. But then the shouting turned into hitting, and one day, he walked out the door and never came back. Her words hung heavy in the air. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. He had heard of cruelty before, but hearing it from her lips filled him with a quiet fury. "He left you both?" Daniel asked, his voice low with anger. Saren nodded slowly. "Yes, and when he left, the neighbors turned too. They said it was my fault, that I was cursed, that no man stays with a woman like me." Her eyes glistened, but she did not let the tears fall. "I stopped waiting for anyone to help. I worked. I scraped together food. I endured the whispers, the stares. I thought I could carry it all." She paused, her voice breaking. "But Lyra!" "She sees more than I want her to. She sees my tears when I think she sleeps. She sees the loneliness I try to hide." Daniel's chest ached. He thought of the little girl's request in the market. Her innocent words, "Please be my dad for one night." Now, he finally understood. "You've been carrying this alone all these years," he said. Saren gave a bitter laugh. "What choice did I have? A woman without a mate is nothing in my people's eyes. A child without a father is called lesser. Lyra doesn't deserve this life, but it's the only one I can give her." Daniel's voice hardened. "She deserves better. And so do you." Saren's eyes flashed with something like anger, but it wasn't directed at him. It was at the truth of his words. She stood pacing the small room, her hands clenched. Do you think I don't know that? Every day I dream of a different life for her. But I can't fight the whole world. I'm only one woman. Daniel rose as well, his voice calm but firm. Then don't fight it alone. She stopped, staring at him with wide eyes. Why do you care? The question struck him harder than he expected. Why did he care? He could have walked away after that first request in the market. He could have forgotten them, continued his wandering. But something in Lyra's smile and Saren's tired eyes had chained itself to his heart. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled the folded drawing from his pocket and placed it gently on the table. Because she drew this, he said softly. And because no child should dream of a father who isn't real unless her heart is breaking. Saren looked at the paper, at the 3 stick figures holding hands. Her lips trembled, and this time, the tears she had been holding back finally spilled down her cheeks. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to silence the sobs, but they came anyway. Years of pain pouring out in one fragile moment. Daniel didn't move closer, didn't try to touch her. He only stood there, letting her release what she had hidden for so long. Lyra's laughter drifted from the other room, light and innocent, untouched by the darkness of her mother's story. When Saren finally looked up, her tears still glistening, Daniel spoke gently. You are not cursed. You are not weak. You survived when others would have given up. That makes you stronger than you think. Her eyes searched his face as if testing his words, searching for a lie. But she found none. For the first time since he had entered her home, Saren whispered something that sounded like hope. Maybe you're right. But even as she spoke, Daniel sensed something else. A shadow still lingered, something unspoken, something dangerous. And he knew this story was far from over. The threat returns. The quiet morning did not last long. Daniel had gone outside to fetch some water from the street well. The neighborhood was waking up, doors creaking open, neighbors whispering to each other, their eyes darting toward Saren's small house. He could hear fragments of their voices, still alone. Her husband left her years ago, and now a human goes in and out of her home? Shameful. The words were like sharp stones thrown in the dark. Daniel ignored them, but his chest tightened with anger. He wanted to shout back, but he knew it would only make things harder for Saren. When he returned to the house, Lyra was laughing as she braided flowers into her mother's hair. For a moment, the little home looked like a place of peace, but then loud footsteps echoed outside. Heavy, deliberate, dangerous. Saren froze instantly. The flowers slipped from her lap. Her face went pale. No, she whispered. Daniel turned to the door just as it burst open. A tall figure stepped inside, his shadow filling the room. His skin was the same silver blue as Saren and Lyra, but his features were hard and cruel. His eyes burned with a cold fire. His clothes were fine but torn, as if he had been wandering with no care for dignity. Daniel didn't need to ask who he was. The look on Saren's face told him everything. Finally, the man sneered, his gaze sweeping the room. I thought you'd learned your place by now, Saren, but what do I find? A stranger sitting at your table. A human, no less. His lips curled in disgust. Pathetic. Lyra scrambled behind her mother, clutching her dress. Mama, she whispered in fear. Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight. You must be the one who left them. The man's cold laugh filled the room. Left them? No, I freed myself. She was weak. And this child? He glanced at Lyra with contempt. Nothing but a mouth to feed. I should have discarded her years ago. Saren's body shook with rage, but her voice trembled as she shouted, You have no right to come back. You abandoned us! The man's eyes narrowed. I came back for what is mine. The room fell silent. Daniel's heart stopped for a beat. Saren's voice broke into a scream. No, you will not touch her. She stepped in front of Lyra, her arms spread wide. The man snarled. You think you can stop me? You've always been weak, Saren. Always. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. He moved to stand beside Saren, his voice cold and steady. She's not yours anymore. You lost that right when you walked away. The alien man's eyes flicked to Daniel, full of fury. And who are you, human? A wanderer with nothing? Do you think you can take my place? Do you think you can fight me? He stepped closer, towering over Daniel, his presence heavy and threatening. Lyra clung to her mother's legs, her eyes wide with terror. Don't let him take me, Mama, she whispered, Saren's hands shook, but she held her ground. "You will not take her," she repeated, her voice stronger now. The man laughed again, a cruel, mocking sound. "Then I'll sell her. She's still young enough. There are buyers who pay well for children like her." Daniel's blood boiled. His voice was sharp like steel when he spoke. "If you try to touch her, you'll have to go through me first." The alien man looked stunned for a moment, then burst into harsh laughter. "You, a human? Against me? Do you know what you're saying?" Daniel didn't flinch. His eyes locked with the man's, steady and unyielding. "I know exactly what I'm saying." The tension in the room grew like a storm. Saren stood frozen, torn between fear and hope. Lyra buried her face against her mother, too scared to even breathe. The alien man's voice dropped low, deadly. "You'll regret this, both of you. I'll take her and I'll break you if you get in my way." He turned sharply and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. The sound shook the walls. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with fear. Saren collapsed into a chair, holding Lyra tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "He'll come back. He won't stop until he takes her." Daniel knelt in front of them both, his expression firm. "Then let him come. I won't let him touch either of you." Saren looked at him, her eyes full of doubt and desperation. "You don't understand. He's stronger than you. He'll crush you." Daniel shook his head. "Strength isn't just muscles and power. It's about what you're willing to fight for. And I'll fight for her. For both of you." Lyra's small hand reached out and touched Daniel's face. "You really mean it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded. "I mean it." For the first time, Lyra's fearful eyes softened. She hugged him tightly, her small arms around his neck. "Then you're my dad now," she whispered. Daniel's heart clenched. He glanced at Saren, whose tears still fell silently, but this time, her eyes carried something else, a fragile spark of hope. But he knew the fight was only beginning. The threat had returned, and it would not leave quietly. The humans' stand the night was heavy with silence. Every creak of wood, every howl of wind outside made Saren tense, as if expecting the door to burst open again. Lyra lay in her mother's arms, but even in half-sleep, her little hands clutched tightly at Saren's dress, afraid of being taken. Daniel sat near the door, his back straight, his jaw tight. His mind replayed the cruel words of the alien father again and again. "I'll take her. I'll sell her. You can't stop me." Daniel had faced many dangers in his life, but this was different. This was not about survival or duty. It was about protecting a family that wasn't his, yet felt more important than anything he'd ever known. Hours passed, until finally, heavy footsteps approached once more. The door shuddered under a loud knock. No, not a knock, but a demand. "Saren," the voice roared. "Open the door or I'll tear it down." Saren's face went pale. Lyra whimpered in her arms. But Daniel stood, his eyes cold and steady. He placed a hand on the door. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. Before Saren could respond, the door splintered under a heavy blow. The alien father stormed inside, taller and broader than Daniel, his muscles rippling with strength. His eyes burned with fury, and in his hand he carried a short blade that glowed faintly under the dim light. "You were warned, human." The man spat. "Step aside." "The child is mine." Daniel didn't move. He stood like a wall between the man and the mother and daughter behind him. "No," he said quietly, but with iron in his voice. "You lost that right the day you abandoned them," the alien sneered. "Do you think your words matter? You're nothing. I'll crush you." He lunged forward, swinging the blade. Daniel dodged quickly, the strike missing by inches. The clash sent sparks flying as the blade scraped the wooden wall. Saren gasped, holding Lyra close, unable to look away. Daniel grabbed a broken piece of wood from the floor and held it like a weapon. He was smaller, weaker, but his stance was unshaken. The alien laughed harshly. "You dare fight me with a stick?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "I don't need strength to win. I only need reason to stand, and I have one." He blocked another strike, the wood splintering under the blade's power. The alien pressed forward with brute force, each attack heavier than the last. Daniel staggered back but refused to fall. "You can't protect them," the alien roared. "You're just a man with nothing." Daniel's voice cut through the clash, steady and sharp. "Then you don't understand what nothing means. I've had nothing my whole life. And that's why I won't let her," he nodded toward Lyra, "grow up the same way. Not while I can fight." The alien lunged again, but Daniel sidestepped and swung the broken wood across his arm, knocking the blade away. It clattered to the floor, glowing faintly in the shadows. For a moment, silence filled the room. Saren's breath caught and Lyra's eyes widened. The alien's face twisted with rage. He swung his fist now, heavy and brutal. Each strike shook Daniel's body, each blow stronger than he could bear. Blood trickled from his lip and his arms ached, but he refused to fall. "Stay down, human," the alien snarled. "This is my child." Daniel staggered, his knees almost giving out. But then he looked at Lyra, her small face peeking from behind her mother's arms, her eyes full of fear yet hope. Something inside him roared awake. He rose again, his voice louder than the alien's. "No, she's my child now. Not by blood, but by choice, and that makes me stronger than you will ever be." With a sudden surge, Daniel struck the alien across the jaw with all his strength. The man stumbled back, crashing into the table. The candle tipped, fire catching briefly before dying out, plunging the room into shadows. The alien snarled, struggling to rise, but Daniel was already standing over him. The broken wood was at his throat. One more step toward them. Daniel growled, his voice filled with unshakable fury. "And you'll regret it. Leave. Now." The alien froze. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. He looked at Saren, who stood tall now, her fear gone, her face strong and defiant. He looked at Lyra, clutching her mother, no longer crying but glaring at him with the same strength as Daniel. Something in that moment broke him. With a final curse, he shoved Daniel back and stormed out of the house, slamming the shattered door behind him. His heavy footsteps faded into the night. Silence returned, but it was different now. Not heavy with fear, but alive with relief. Daniel dropped the broken wood and sank to his knees, his body trembling with exhaustion. Saren rushed forward, kneeling beside him. You stood against him?" she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. Daniel wiped the blood from his lip and gave a tired smile. "I told you, strength isn't about muscles. It's about what you're willing to fight for." Lyra crawled into his lap, hugging him tightly. "You didn't let him take me," she whispered. "You really are my dad now." Daniel's arms wrapped around her gently, his heart heavy yet light at the same time. He glanced at Saren, who was staring at him with tears shining in her eyes, not of sorrow but of something new. Something fragile, something like hope. For the first time, the house felt safe. But deep inside, Daniel knew this wasn't the end. The man might return, others might come, yet tonight something powerful had been built between them. Not just protection, not just survival, family. A new family. The house was quiet again after the storm. The broken door leaned on its hinges, the table lay on its side, and the candle had burned out. Yet for the first time in years, Saren's home did not feel like a place of sadness. It felt alive. Daniel sat on the floor, exhausted, blood still at the corner of his lip, but his spirit unbroken. Lyra sat curled up in his lap, her little arms wrapped tightly around his chest as if she never wanted to let go. Saren stood nearby, her hands pressed against her heart, her eyes still wet with tears. For a long time, no one spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it was full of meaning. Finally, Saren knelt beside them. Her hand reached out and gently brushed Daniel's arm. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you fight so hard for us? We are nothing to you." Daniel shook his head slowly. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. "You're wrong. You're not nothing. Lyra asked me to come because she wanted her mother to smile again. And when I saw her hope, I couldn't walk away. I've lived a life with no one waiting for me. I know what that emptiness feels like. I won't let her grow up with the same pain." Saren's lips trembled. She wanted to argue, to push his kindness away, but she couldn't. The truth was in his eyes, steady and unshaken. He was not pretending. He was not pitying her. He was simply standing beside her because he chose to. Lyra lifted her head, her small voice breaking the silence. "Mama, can we keep him?" "Please, he's strong. He made the bad man go away. He makes us feel safe." The innocence in her words made Saren's tears fall freely. She pulled her daughter close, kissing her silver blue hair. "Oh, Lyra, you don't know what you're asking." But Daniel answered instead, "She's not wrong. If you'll have me, I'll stay. Not as a guest, not as a stranger. As family." Saren's eyes widened. She stared at him, disbelief flooding her heart. "Family?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. Not by blood, maybe. But family is more than that. It's standing together when the world wants to tear you apart. It's choosing to stay when others walk away. Saren's breath caught in her chest. She thought of the years of whispers, of neighbors calling her cursed, of doors that never opened when she needed help. And now, here was a human, a man with no reason to stay, offering her and her daughter the one thing she had longed for, but had given up on: belonging. She lowered her gaze, afraid of believing too much. What if he comes back? What if others come? You saw tonight? He's stronger. He could return. Daniel placed a hand gently over hers. Then let him come. He will find me here, and I will fight again, because this time I have something worth protecting. The words wrapped around her like warmth in the cold. For the first time in years, Saren allowed herself to hope. That night, Daniel repaired the broken door as best he could. Saren prepared a small bed for him near the fireplace, though he noticed her glancing at him often, as if making sure he didn't disappear like the man before him. Lyra fell asleep quickly, her face peaceful in a way Saren hadn't seen in a long time. When morning came, the house felt different. The air was lighter, the silence softer. Daniel joined them for breakfast, and though the food was still simple, bread and soup, it no longer felt poor. It felt shared. Neighbors peeked through the windows and whispered again, but this time Saren didn't lower her head in shame. Daniel sat beside her, calm and strong, and the whispers didn't matter anymore. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel began fixing the broken parts of the house. He mended the roof, repaired the chairs, and even built a small wooden fence outside so Lyra could play safely. The neighbors, at first mocking, began to quiet. Some even looked with curiosity, for the human did not leave. He stayed, and slowly Saren's smile returned. At first it was faint, almost invisible, but with each day it grew stronger. She began humming while cooking, something Lyra had never heard before. Her shoulders no longer slumped with weariness. She began to look forward instead of only back. One evening, as the stars lit the sky, Daniel sat outside with Saren and Lyra. The little girl leaned against him, pointing at the constellations. "That one looks like us," she said, giggling.
"A mama, a papa, and a little girl." Saren looked up too, her eyes glistening in the starlight.
She whispered softly, "For years I thought I was cursed to walk alone, but maybe the stars were only waiting for the right person to arrive." Daniel turned his head toward her. "You'll never walk alone again." Their eyes met, and in that silence more was said than words could ever carry. Lyra climbed into Daniel's lap and hugged him tightly. "You're my dad now, forever." Daniel held her close, his heart swelling with a feeling he had almost forgotten existed: home. Saren reached out, her hand brushing his. For the first time in many years, she wasn't afraid. She let herself believe in something new, something strong, something they could build together. A broken family had been healed. A lonely woman had found hope. A little girl had found the father she dreamed of. And a wandering man had found something he thought he would never have again: a place to belong. As the stars glowed above them, the house no longer seemed small or broken. It was alive, warm, and full of love. Sometimes the bravest act in the universe isn't saving galaxies or fighting wars. Sometimes it's choosing to be family to those who had none.